Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I move amendments numbers 2, 5 and 9 on sheet C 2025-332D in Globo. I rise to speak in support of this amendment, which would remove so-called recreational hunting as a genuine reason to possess a firearm in New South Wales.
Two minutes later.
Mr Borsak.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Mr Deputy President, I rise on behalf of the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party to speak in opposition, as you'd expect, to the proposed amendments of Schedule 2, items 15A through 15D, relating to recreational hunting and vermin control under Section 12 of the Firearms Act 1996. At first glance, these amendments may appear minor, merely changes to the wording of Section 12 table, but make no mistake, Mr Deputy President, they represent a fundamental attack on rural communities, on farmers, on landholders, and on the responsible law-abiding use of firearms across New South Wales. These amendments seek to remove recreational hunting as a standalone, genuine reason for firearms licence, require all applicants to hold membership of a Commissioner-approved hunting club, and eliminate existing flexibilities in paragraphs B1 and C. These changes are unnecessary, disproportionate and out of touch with the realities faced by rural and regional New South Wales. Under Section 12 framework, recreational hunting/vermin control accommodates multiple pathways for legitimate firearm use: membership of an approved hunting club, ownership of an occupancy of rural land, permission from landholders to hunt, authorisation from agencies such as the Department of Primary Industry. This flexible approach balances safety, oversight and practical access. It enables farmers, landholders and conservationists to manage feral animals such as pigs, deer, goats, foxes responsibly without imposing unnecessary bureaucracy. Let us consider geography. Over 80% of New South Wales is rural. Properties often cover thousands of hectares. Hunting clubs are concentrated in urban and regional centres. A person living in the Pilliga or Far West cannot reasonably join a Sydney-based club, attend mandatory meetings, yet these amendments would force exactly that. The consequences are significant. These changes increase administrative burden, impose unnecessary costs and risk non-compliance for law-abiding citizens. They may force rural residents to relinquish licences, creating gaps in pest management and potentially allowing feral populations to grow unchecked. The data speaks for itself. Over the last 20 years, licensed hunters have culled more than 300,000 animals on public land and a minimum of 19 million animals on private land. This is a community of responsible, law-abiding people protecting ecosystems, supporting agriculture and contributing to public safety. These amendments punish them for urban incidents or terror events such as that in Bondi, over which they have no control. Removing the flexibility in paragraphs B1 and C further narrows eligibility, ignoring practical realities of remote or solo landholders. Essential pest management, conservation work and recreational hunting become a bureaucratic hurdle with no measurable improvement in public safety. This solution is straightforward: retain flexible, genuine reasons in Section 12 and support alternative compliance mechanisms such as online safety training, property verified permits or agency authorisation. This approach is evidence-based, practical and respects the livelihoods and cultural practices of communities across New South Wales. In conclusion of this part, Mr Deputy President, the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party strongly opposes these amendments. We urge the House to reject Schedule 2 items 15A through 15D in their entirety and to preserve a framework that protects rural communities, supports responsible pest management and upholds recreational hunting across New South Wales. Mr Deputy President, in relation to the second part of the Honourable Member's amendment, once again the House has been dragged into an ideological sideshow by the Animal Justice Party. Once again we hear the same tired rhetoric, the same caricatures and the same contempt for ordinary law-abiding Australians. And once again the member of the AJP delivers yet another pathetic swipe at the licensed firearms owners while clinging desperately to a sinking activist ship. This amendment seeks to remove recreational hunting as a genuine reason for holding a firearms licence. And let us be clear, this is not a technical tweak. It is not a safety reform. It is not evidence-based. It is a blunt ideological strike aimed at erasing a lawful, regulated, culturally embedded activity that this state relies on every single day of the year. The AJP wants to pretend this is about compassion. It is not. It is about control. It is about imposing inner city ideology on rural and regional reality. It is about punishing people who live differently, think differently and refuse to apologise for it. More than 90% of licensed firearms owners in New South Wales are conservation hunters, not criminals, not extremists, not stereotypes invented by fundraising emails from the people that support her party. They are men and women and children who comply with one of the strictest firearms regulatory systems in the world. They are vetted, trained, inspected, monitored and accountable. These people are not a risk to the community, they are an asset to it. They feed their families, they harvest their own food, they reduce waste, they understand where food comes from and what it costs in effort, responsibility and respect. They carry forward practices older than this parliament and deeper than the politics of the day. Hunting is not a novelty, it is a true trend. It is not a trend, it is not a social media pose, it is a human constant. It is woven into who we are and how we survived over the millions of years that we've been on this planet. In Australia, it is inseparable from the land, seasons, weather and knowledge passed from one generation to the next. For many Australians, the bush is not a backdrop, it is a refuge. It is where drained spirits are refilled and rattled nerves are steadied. It is where noise falls away and clarity returns. And hunting is the means by which people engage with these landscapes honestly, not as tourists but as participants. Licensed hunters are not the enemies of nature, they are the frontline defenders. It was a hunter, Aldo Leopold, who first used the word conservation. They are the vanguard of ecological protection in this state. They control invasive species on public land where government agencies are overstretched or absent. They assist farmers on private land where crops are destroyed, fences are breached and stock is put at risk. They reduce grazing pressure, they protect waterways, they prevent habitat collapse. They do the work that glossy reports talk about but rarely deliver. If the state had to replace this effort with paid programs, the cost literally would be staggering and the outcomes poorer. Yet the Animal Justice Party waves all of this away because reality is inconvenient to their worldview. The hypocrisy does not stop there. Hunting is not merely lawful, it is cultural. It is a critical part of the Indigenous culture. For tens of thousands of years, hunting has been central to Indigenous Australians' relationship with country. It goes back hundreds of thousands of years in other countries like that of my father, Poland. It is knowledge, identity and stewardship in action. To attack hunting is to attack the oldest living cultural practices on this continent and on this planet. And yet the Animal Justice Party and its master, the Greens political party, which claim endlessly to champion Indigenous voices, show no hesitation in dismantling this tradition when it conflicts with their ideology. That contradiction is not accidental, it is revealing. Hunting also binds families, it brings parents and children together in shared purpose. It teaches patience, discipline and respect. It forges a new generation grounded in competence rather than entitlement. In an age where children are glued to screens, anxious, disconnected and overstimulated, hunting offers something rare and valuable. It removes them from the digital noise and places them in real ecosystems. They learn how the land works, they learn how animals move, they learn that life is finite and must be respected and not sentimentalised. This is real education, not slogans, not cartoons, not curated outrage. And this is precisely why the Animal Justice Party hates it. Like everything else they touch, this amendment is an act of cultural vandalism. They are wowsers of the worst kind, joyless, puritanical, hostile to anything that cannot be controlled, sanitised or monetised for their activism. They would take our pets, they would end farming of all kinds, they would dismantle animal management entirely and replace it with fantasy. Animals roaming unmanaged, landscapes collapsing under the pressure, farmers abandoned, communities hollowed out. This vision is not compassionate, it is reckless. By eliminating recreational hunting, they would hand power to the real destroyers of wildlife, introduce predators like foxes, feral cats and wild dogs. These animals do not respond to protests. They do not respect boundaries. They wipe out native species with ruthless efficiency. They would also open the door to serious biosecurity disasters. Uncontrolled populations mean disease. Swine flu does not care about ideology. Neither do parasites, pathogens, or population booms that spiral beyond control. This is not a theory. This is what happens when management is replaced by moral posturing. Recreational hunting stands at the edge, holding back ecological collapse in countless regions across this state. It is disciplined, it is regulated, and it is effective. And yet a passionless voice rises in this chamber seeking to erase it, offering nothing in return, no alternative system, no funding, no workplace, no plan, just slogans, propaganda and dogma. Mr Assistant President, this House must decide whether it governs in the real world or in the activist imagination. New South Wales will not be lectured by people who have never dragged a feral carcass out of a gully, never repaired a fence at dusk, never watched a paddock degrade under unmanaged pressure. We will not scapegoat law-abiding citizens to satisfy the vanity of a party that never bears responsibility for the consequences of its ideas. We say no to this amendment entirely.
To put the question before the House is Animal Justice Party amendments numbers 2, 5 and 9 on sheet 332D. Question is those amendments be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the noes have it. The noes have it.